example, the Shopify connector in UnoPim.
Yes.
That's a pretty great tool to import and export. UnoPim has MCP support. That by default becomes a obvious choice. You don't need to look at other options.
Okay, so hello everyone. Today we have Jagdeep here, also known as the JD code over the GitHub. And today we will be talking about his journey and his contribution in open source and our UnoPim. So Jagdeep, I would firstly love you to introduce with our audience. Please provide a bit about yourself, introduction of you and how you started your development journey and how you got into this UnoPim stuff.
Sure. Thanks, Ditya. And it's an honor getting invited by WebCool. I've heard a lot about WebCool and because though I've been on Dalacon, all of the ones that have happened so far, and I did meet few guys over there. I think on the first Dalacon as well.
That's great.
And with myself, Jagdeep Singh, I've been working in PHP since quite some time now, almost I think 20 years or so. So since 2006, I'm in PHP, and before that, since 2002, 3, I've been working on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Photoshop. Basically, I wanted to be a web designer, and then 2006, I was introduced to PHP, and I was like, okay, let's make use of the designs that I have, and I ended up converting those into HTML and just integrating it purely at the PHP side for front-end customization, dynamic stuff.
Yes.
And then I kind of got the hang of it, basically, which means I got a job at PHP. And then, sorry about that. And that was the starting point. And then I'm here now, working as a solution architect in the Founder Lightning / the Lightning Group. It's a UK-based organization I'm working here. It's almost 7.5 years or so now.
That's a long time I've been working. Could you please let us know, like, were you always interested in towards coding and how you got into this development stuff? How you got introduced to the open source and this contribution?
Well, like I said, I've been working since quite a long time, and that was time when GitHub was not around, I think. Or at least the composer was not there, right? So there used to be some code snippets you would find on different forums. I mean, PHP BB used to be the norm that point of time. And then there was also a website called phpclasses.org, just still out there. One of the thing that I was able to find on that was, I think I was doing some Ajax stuff in an Excel sheet kind of thing, kind of trying to replicate what Google Spreadsheet is now. And I found some really nice classes on the phpclasses.org. That was my first introduction to GitHub, to open source, where people would create something and that they would upload that file as a class or as a directory over there. It was kind of, GitHub before GitHub, but no version control or anything. You can download your file and just use it in your code. And then came Composer, which obviously changed everything. Wherein you don't really have to download every single file and keep track of it. It did those great things. That was pretty nice. And once that started, I started to use, obviously. I was quite much into Cake PHP and YAI frameworks at that point of time.
Okay.
And those were like pretty, probably one of the very first few adapters of the packaging of the code that was there. They had a lot of composer stuff in there. So I had to learn it, created some packages, they didn't work, deleted those, got back to using the ones that was more sensible. And once I saw something, I want to add something to this. Or it would be best if someone could add this X feature to this some other package, database package or something.
Okay, so
that was
that was
the
first time. Yeah, that was the first time how you got into this open source contributions.
Yep.
Okay, I would really love to know that how you got to know about UnoPim and how you thought that you should contribute this feature. Was that an issue for you, or you wanted a feature in UnoPim like that?
I think I'm just lucky. Like another real thing, I was a couple of years back. I was starting a project in which it was very much heavily essentially, if that project that I'm working on right now is on my in my company, so that's a project which is very close to what PIM is, but it has been in usage since almost like 8 years or so. It was
Okay.
then since Laravel 4 or something time. Then they keep on updating it Laravel 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. And I got to work on that project a couple of years back, and then I started to look into, okay, are there any existing tools that I can use? Because for example, the Shopify connector in UnoPim,
Yes.
that's a pretty great tool to import and export. Or that gives, like, functionality aside, just the UI gives such a clear understanding of the person who's using it. This is the
Yes.
field that I'm importing into. This is the field that I'm exporting as, and then I also have an option to, specify the data type and everything. So that was the kind of thing that was okay. That's something that that's something that we were already building. That's I think we were talking about like at least a year ago when we were building that kind of thing. And when I knew UnoPim will eventually get to this point of adding more third-party support because the options of API setup was there already. So I was just kind of like, but I couldn't wait, obviously. So that was the point when I started looking into UnoPim. I saw it. I wanted to install it. I installed it. I'm like, okay, I've been a Docker fan for almost like 6-7 years now. Almost every project that I see, I first convert to Docker because I don't even know which PHP version I will have and which PHP version the application will require. So I'm like, let me just containerize it first. I containerized it. I used it for a few months. I'm like, okay, it would probably also be usable by someone else. So okay, let me just polish it down a bit, push it back with the Docker updates. And that was my introduction to Webpool.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So as you mentioned, so how was your experience with installing and setting up the UnoPim on your system and using that? And since you have contributed to it, so what was that specific contribution that you have made? We would love to hear that from you.
So, like I said, the installation was fairly smooth. It was there were a few steps. You have to go through like 1, 2, 3 steps. You will run the UnoPim installer after installing the other packages and everything. The both install, npm install, and everything. Copy over the env file, migrations and everything. Actually, migration is being generated by UnoPim installer, but I think I did try a couple of different ways. What of those options were available till last year? Okay. And then, I really want to do this, and I was in a place where I had to create the setup from default a few times. So I'm like, okay, every time I have to do this, so why don't just create a Docker Compose setup which will do everything for it. That was just my adding one level of convenience for myself that I wanted to share.
And that's really great, and that will help other developers too to do that's just the same.
Like, just as an example, one of the things that I wanted to add to Docker Compose was that we use queues a lot. Within UnoPim also, there's a need for queue or Shopify connectors for background jobs and everything. Yes. So one of the things that I was like, okay, let's add a different container which will run just the queues in the background, so you don't have to start queue listener every time or queue work. Okay. So right now, if you just do a Docker Compose upd, your queue listener will always be working in the background without you having to need to do anything else. So actually, I just tried, I think like yesterday probably, I installed a fresh version of UnoPim. I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. I didn't really, my default go-to thing is just doing Docker Compose upd. So I ran that one and it just worked. Like, this is nice, this is cool.
Okay, since you also mentioned of the Shopify connector, I really want to know that have you explored our other modules as well? Like we do provide other modules as well, for example, the PDF generator and for the image URL generation. So have you explored them a bit?
Unfortunately, not yet. Actually, my team is also working on those different components. Shopify connector, I did get to install and use a bit, but the other ones, image and PDF ones, they do not.
Okay. So what difference do you find in the UnoPim and the other PIM systems that exist already there in the market?
Well, in one word, I would say potential. The potential is huge. Potential is really, really huge. That also means we have pretty good competition as well in the market, right? So that means the potential of being one of the most customizable thing that is there. Right now, I use like, I think 7 or 8 different PIMs PIM, CMS, whatever the different people call it, right? IMS, inventory management system or something. So I've used a few, and some custom, some free, not free, but still they were installed and blah blah blah, whatever manner, right? So one of the challenges when it comes to customization, it's really, really difficult. Being an open source and very actively updated, that's what something that I really like. It whenever I go, there is an update after the last time I checked it. Somehow that's a good thing. People are contributing to it. People are adding bits and pieces to it. People are adding connectors. So I see there's an effort, there's an actual proactive effort being put that, okay, this is something that we want to add to the platform. So that's where I see a lot of potential.
Yeah, that's what make products like these great. Like people like you and the developers keep contributing such great features into it. Together with it, I would really like to know like what sort of features would you like to contribute in future, or do you have any ideas to work with it further?
Well, yes, Shopify Connector is one of the surprises that came along the way when I started using UnoPim. So I was already looking into it. Shopify, not just Shopify, there were a lot of other different type of connectors that I was working with. And I'm like, okay, this is good news, really, because Shopify is a very widely used platform, a connector that provides a default setup to talk to the API. That's really nice. What I would probably want to do is, yes, the Shopify connector, maybe some more connectors to show up. I know that's obviously an effort that a developer needs to invest in. And I think if we put up some guidelines in terms of if you want to develop a new connector for this X marketplace, these are the things that you would kind of consider while creating that. So think of it like as documentation of an interface for a connector. So if you do that, you put it up in your repo or some link somewhere, it'll be very helpful and easy for someone who's already worked on some kind of marketplace integration, but not necessarily in the UnoPim kind of setup. So they could, it would be much easier for me to, for example, let's say I'm working with Virtual Stock, right? That's one of the UK, the Europe, UK based connector marketplace, Virtual Stock. And I want to implement Virtual Stock so that it can be used as a connector in UnoPim. But I don't know the structure of the UnoPim connector or the expectations. So okay, let me do that in some time. And since I don't know how to approach that, that's kind of a blocker for me. The best thing would be just like we are talking, right? So we are trying to identify what the blockers are. So we remove the blockers, we put up things which make it easier for people to contribute.
Yes, 100%. And we always look for the same, like how we can enhance our products that are existing so people come and create a community and contribute more and more about it. So together with that, since I already asked about it, like, are you planning to contribute further to the UnoPim and what are your ideas with it?
Well, actually, yes, I was already looking at the code. Like I said, I installed yesterday again a fresh installation. One of the things that I found was, okay, remember we talked about the queue listener running in the background? Right now that's running in a different container. So we don't need to run a different container for that. We can actually run that in the background of the web container itself. So we don't really, have to have multiple containers running. It will be very light Docker Compose setup. Probably one database and one web connector only. And yes, if we want to have Elasticsearch, that's also something that I was thinking about adding it as an optional container, not required. And one of the things that I'm really big fan of recently is like last few months is MCP, like AI/MCP stuff. Okay. So that's something that I've been looking into. And have you
with that?
have you is someone like working on Laravel Boost integration of some sort? If not, then I would be happy to help with that.
100%. I exactly do not have any idea if anyone's working on that, but I'll check with the team and we'll get back to you regarding it. Yeah. But together with that, would you like to provide a brief of AI and the stuff and how we can use that to enhance the product that are existing there? Like we have got a lot of features in our UnoPim as well. Like for example, the product description generation, etc., etc. So do you have any specific idea that this is the place where we can integrate this feature to enhance its functionality?
Yep, absolutely. So Laravel Boost, for those who don't know, it's a MCP server, MCP capabilities. I won't say just server. It adds MCP capabilities to a Laravel application. So you install Laravel Boost, and then you run it in the background in your local system, and Laravel Boost in the background in whatever manner. Just like we run a queue server, you listen to queue. Just like that, we run Boost MCP. So what it does is it exposes and the problem that it solves is, before I talk about the solution, I think it's good to talk about the problem as well. So let's say you are using some sort of AI tool. It could be Augment or GitHub Copilot or Gemini or anything. So you ask it to do something, it will recognize that, oh, this is a Laravel project, this is the kind of controller that is there, this is the model, blah, 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 and it will try to write some code. Now, it may not be writing the code based on the correct Laravel version or the correct, let's say, Wheat version or anything else that is there. Or even, let's say, Tinker. If it wants to run a query, it wouldn't know what to do with Tinker. So Laravel Boost is something that will allow, and it eventually allows for hallucinated code that is there. The code, there is no methods existing, right? AI will write some code, it will not work. It happens a lot of time, right? So one of the things that Boost will do, Laravel Boost does, is it provides guidelines for the locally running your AI server and tells, okay, if you want to run this specific thing, know that I have the option to provide you the right kind of syntax, right format for this functionality. So if the AI tool requires to access, let's say, database, oh, you know what, this is something, this time zone is, it looks like incorrect. That's why the test case is failing probably. So it will actually be able to connect to the database via Tinker and check what's the actual value. And it can actually run the test case then against that as well. It can, if you're using, let's say, Laravel 11 version specific stuff, and it will be able to give you the code only for Laravel 11, not for 12 or 10. So that's the level of precision that the AI gets if we have the Laravel MCP, Boost MCP support with that. And that's like the AI trying to read from our application. Okay, what is the Laravel version? What is your database version? How can I connect? How many tables are there? How many columns are there? What's the exact data for this user and everything? That's the level of thing. In addition to that, it also does the reverse of that. That means we can actually write our own MCP tools using the Boost MCP guidance as well. So you can create, so there are route files, web.php, api.php, console.php. Similarly, you can also create an AI.php file, which Boost is, which uses, which is the default route file for AI interactions. And that exposes, now you can write code in that for MCP server, which means like you can expose for your application specific stuff. Let's say you say, yes, default stuff of Laravel database is fine, but you want to expose that if you connect to this UnoPim API, if you want to get data let's say, of a marketplace, let's say, you want to get list of latest 10 products added for a specific marketplace, and you also want to, let's say, get attributes of that based on certain custom logic, not just the default database one. So you can write the custom logic, and then you expose that endpoint as an API tool for the MCP server. So now MCP server can specifically target that, whatever your requirement is. That's a pretty unique thing, and it's one of the list of things which is out there. I think it's just getting, it's so fresh, so new, it's been only a few months. So people are just catching up to it, and people are so occupied in their work and everything. It's difficult to spend time on, doing so much R&D. And that's one thing that I really want to integrate in upcoming technologies and stuff like, for example, UnoPim. So it makes it more close to adoption when it comes to, if someone was looking for PIM tool, okay, which should I go to? UnoPim has MCP support. That by default becomes a obvious choice. You don't need to look at other options. That's the kind of thing that I'm looking like. Things that are easy to implement, and they actually add more value than you can imagine.
That's a really great thought, and I hope people will resonate with it. And together with it, do you have an advice for the people who find open source and contribution bit difficult, and how they can get into it and how it actually helps them to grow and what they are doing with real life problem and code bases.
Actually, that's a pretty good question. And that's also something that has been quite negatively being popularized recently,
Yes,
like in last few months as
exactly.
well, right? So, and there are obviously some simple things that people can do. But one of the things that I strongly believe is that you shouldn't really start contributing to open source unless unless you have a problem statement that at least you need that solution. I don't need README file of Node or Express to say my name. Right? That's not what I want. I see a situation where I say, okay, this is a good thing that this tool is doing, and I need it to do this one X more thing. Let me see if someone else also has faced this problem. I would probably go to the issue, raise an issue. I'll probably go to the discussions if it is available. I'll find some sort of Discord server and someone who's maintaining the repo in Twitter or somewhere. And I'll say, okay, dude, I know this is great, right? But could you also let me know if there is any pipeline, any requirement, any task in your pipeline to add this feature? If they say, you know what, we are releasing this feature in 2 weeks, then you're like, okay, in 2 weeks, I'll get that feature. If it doesn't, then you say, okay, would it be possible for me to contribute to this one? As in, would you be able to help me with understanding how to contribute for this specific feature? They would be more than happy to, assist you, to guide you, at least some articles, some previous PRs or something that, okay, this is how you should go with open source. But still, the point is, you should start with the problem that you are having. Like I started with UnoPim because I was having a need for a PAM in my system.
Yes.
I started looking at containerizing it because I didn't have the PHP version which was required to run UnoPim at that point of time. So I was solving my problems, and if it solves my problem, there's a high probability to be able to solve someone else's problem.
Another
as
person
well.
would be happy to see. Yeah. That's actually a great thought. Nowadays, people usually think that they can directly jump into contribution in the open source without having a sort of problem. They just juggle over that. Actually, this was the great point that you mentioned here, that at first you should have a specific problem and then you should check it. That is it a real problem? Other people are facing it as well. Then we can solve it and contribute to that open source. So that was a sort of wrap up for us. And thank you so much for joining us, Jagdeep. Thank you for providing all the insights and the valuable feedbacks that we can incorporate in our lives to get a better developer, and all of the idea that you provided us about the technicalities and how we can implement the AI features in the UnoPim to make it better. That was a really conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great day.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much.
It was nice talking.